The incredible variety of art we can find on ancient coins clearly indicates these were powerful tools of propaganda. There's no question about it. Producing objects with this level of intricacy in industrial quantities in pre-industrial societies required a lot of resources, and no king or emperor would do it if it didn't pay off in some kind of way, like in the reinforcement of his authority. However, I always ask myself if people actually cared that much about it. I mean, people out there in the streets, beyond the sphere of the state, of what was going on, like inside the court administration, alongside the king, are there actually written historical records from people on the streets, from authors outside the state, mentioning that people paid attention to what was shown on coins? I've done some research and found some fascinating answers, quotes from ancient Greece to Rome, and even during medieval times. So let me share my findings with you. Now, there's a spectrum of possible answers to this question. At one extreme, there's a camp of historians who believe coins were just economic objects, like bits of standardized, state-issued metal that people used and spent without giving much attention to it. While it is true that in a harsh world like that of our forefathers, people would be more worried about, earning a living and tending to their crops, rather than seeing what was shown on coins. To claim, however, that whatever appeared on coins was little more than bureaucratic decoration, the delusions of grandeur of a monarch, that doesn't make much sense. At the other extreme, and here I'm going to admit some fault here, as someone who loves these little objects, from watching this channel we can easily get the impression that coin designs were part of this incredibly complex imperial messaging system, the mass media of the ancient world, like carefully chosen to project power and legitimacy across the land. And it feels like everyone was waiting for the next batch of coins to see what was going on at the frontiers. And of course, this is also absurd, even if I personally think this would have been awesome. The truth, as usual, is probably somewhere in between. Less a modern propaganda machine and more like this steady attempt on the part of the power to little by little build this idea of legitimacy on the back of people's heads. There are some fascinating records of private citizens mentioning coins in ancient Greece. These were certainly influential people. After all, they were rich enough to have been able to record their acts in history, but still they were not the ones responsible for choosing and enforcing the coins. These are mostly quotes of people commenting coins rather than taking action on imposing them on other people. Around the year 120 BC, in the city of Sestos in Thrace, a large marble slab was dedicated to a man called Menas. The inscriptions on this slab lists his works as the city's benefactor, including, quote, that he saw to it that the city made its own bronze coins, relying on foreign coins no longer. And in these coins, there were to be the symbols of the city, and the city profited from the earnings of having its own coins. Here the city celebrates Menas for overseeing the creation of the city's bronze coins, which would be used in local commerce. Having your own local coins not only helped ensure the city had enough small change to monetize its markets, but it was also a source of revenue, as in order to conduct trade inside the city, foreign coins had to be exchanged for coins from Sestos, and in this exchange, the local money changers of the city would make a profit, effectively creating a new source of revenue for funding the polis. Looking at classical Athens, we can see something even more intimate. Coins being given a nickname by everyday people, because of course no one's going to be saying tetadrachma or emi tetar temorion more than 3 times before running out of breath. The writer Aristophanes mentions in his plays that the people of Athens refer to their coins as owls, as during the time of the legendary Athena tetradrachma, the one which features the head of Athena and the Athenian owl, it turns out that all of the other smaller fractions of the tetradrachma also follow the same design. So to say an owl, or a glaukos in Greek, was basically synonymous with money. He even creates charming little expressions with the word, like bringing owls to Athens, meaning to do something unnecessary. Athens was already rich. It was full of silver owl coins, so bringing more in would not make a difference. In another text, he makes a criticism of local politics and how the city treated its citizens poorly, comparing the citizens to its, quote, old silver and gold currency made in proper stamp and resounding high-quality metal. Sadly for him, his beloved Athens was instead ruled by people of inferior character, or as he put it, we use inferior bronze coins, struck yesterday or the day before, worthless sons of worthless fathers. Moving on from Greece, we go to the Romans, who fortunately were absolutely obsessed with keeping records of everything, and many references written by private individuals about coins have made it to our days. During the late Republican period, after Julius Caesar dared to put his own living image on a coin, a space previously reserved to the gods or to dead men, in such situations, I think we don't even need to look for a quote of someone to come to the conclusion that people must have noticed and commented on the fact Caesar dared to put his portrait on a coin. Not only because this was likely one of the reasons that got him killed, but also because Caesar ended up with this coin setting up a precedent. Many influential Romans after him, including his assassins, followed on his steps and placed their own portraits on coins just a few months later, including Brutus, one of his assassins, with his famous Ides of March denarius, probably the most famous Roman coin ever made. The coin became so famous amongst the Romans that Cassius Dio, a historian, wrote about this coin some 250 years after it was made, saying, quote, Brutus placed on his coins his own portrait, and also a cap and 2 daggers, to show that he had liberated the fatherland. This shows Cassius Dio either had direct access to the coin or knowledge of the design, knowledge which had been preserved for over 2 centuries. Under Augustus, we see more instances of Romans showing a real awareness of coin history, to a point that makes me seriously consider if Rome didn't have a numismatic community. I'm serious. The case of Monier Marcus Durmius, a magistrate who ran the Rome Mint in the year 19 BC, is incredible. Durmius was in charge of overseeing the Rome Mint that year, and the coin designs he chose to put on the coins range from coins featuring quadrigas, boars, reinterpretations of designs put on coins some 60, 70 years prior, which on itself isn't that surprising, but once you start seeing that he picked designs that could directly be tied to Greek coins issued centuries before his time, then we start wondering if Durmius wasn't a numismatist himself. He issued gold aurei with an image of a crab that can be closely connected to coins of the Greek city of Akragas, but these were coins made in the 5th century BC. He also made denarii with the reverse, imitating coins issued by the city of Neapolis from the 3rd century BC. These coins featured a man-headed bull being crowned by a little flying victory. This image is tightly connected to the religious myths of Neapolis, so it's not like we can make an argument that this is just a Roman symbol that happened to be similar to the Greek coin. We're dealing with a copy of the design here. And he didn't restrict himself to Greek designs from the south of the peninsula. One of his issues features on the reverse a scene of a lion attacking a deer, an imitation of a coin of 4th century BC Tarsus, a city all the way in the Roman Far East. This choice of designs is absolutely not random. It suggests that someone in Augustan Rome knew what older coins had looked like and thought these old designs were still meaningful enough to use. The coins used as prototypes for these denarii were also from completely different monetary standards to those used by the Romans. Systems that were not in use during the reign of Augustus. So we can't even make the argument that these coins could have been in circulation and Durmius simply copied them. No, someone had to have kept these as some kind of collectible. This might have been inconsequential for the average Roman shopper using these coins on the street, but as a coin collector myself, the similarities are so incredible that no one will convince me that our little Marcus Durmius here wasn't very into coins, maybe even a coin collector himself. I will go a step further and make the bold claim that Augustus himself could have been a coin collector. Suetonius, writing about Augustus, said the emperor gifted coins during Saturnalia, presents that included, and I quote, coins of every design, including old coins of the kings and foreign money. That is a small remark, but a very revealing one. Suetonius makes it like a small mistake in this quote by claiming the legendary kings of Rome issued money, which they did not. The first Roman coins are dated from the Republican period, but the part of foreign money might give us a clue to the fact Augustus maybe collected coins of the Hellenistic kings, from the kingdoms that formed after the empire of Alexander the Great was carved up between his successors. And you see, Augustus lived during the fall of the very last Hellenistic kingdoms. He himself presided over the annexation of Ptolemaic Egypt, after all. And these wonderful tetradrachma, featuring the faces of the Greek monarchs, they circulated during his time. So who knows, Augustus might have developed a taste for these coins. And considering one of the designs of Marcus Durmius features the emperor on the reverse riding a chariot pulled by elephants, yet another design that could have drawn inspiration from an older coin from the Seleucid Empire, originally made by Seleucus I, all the way back in the 3rd century BC, and once again the theory seems to gain more and more credibility the more I look into it. Do you think Augustus was a coin collector? Let me know in the comment section below. I want to read what you think. And throughout the imperial period, we see numerous other authors mentioning coins and what was put on them. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, compared the character of bad emperors, such as Nero, against those of good emperors, such as Trajan, and compared them both to good and fake coins. He mentions that if he was given 2 coins of identical value, sestertii with the images of Trajan and of Nero, he would reject the one from Nero, considering it counterfeit, morally corrupt, showing a high degree of attention for what was put on coins. We also have clear examples from the Bible. The Gospel of Matthew mentions specific coins in a level of detail that is impressive. Considering Matthew was a tax collector, meaning he certainly had knowledge about different types of coins, it actually makes sense. From all of his quotes on coins, the most important story is that of the tribute penny, which focuses on the design of the coin itself. In this story, Jesus says that the image of an emperor on a coin simply informs us of the power an emperor had on earth alone, and not on the spiritual realm. This type of story shows us at least that people understood the images on coins, and that fact they were supposed to be symbols of sovereignty, meant to show who was in charge. And messages on coins weren't only saying who was in charge. Coins weren't only about threatening people. There were lots of situations in which emperors wanted to advertise their generosity. I know this is not a case of private individuals talking about coin designs. I'm turning back into the discussion of messages issued by the state, so official messages, but I just had to mention the very wholesome coins issued by Emperor Antoninus Pius and his wife Faustina in the 2nd century AD. During the Liberalitas, a ceremony in which the emperor distributed money and food to the masses, the coins that were gifted in these occasions were made with special reverses, celebrating this emperor's gift. Coins of all metals were given, But what I find fascinating is that the low-value coins, the asses and the sestertii, for example, coins that were given to the masses, many of whom were illiterate, these actually had on the reverse a visual representation of the liberalitas, of the emperor sitting on an elevated platform overseeing the gift giving to the people. This is such a nice touch on the part of the mint officials to ensure everyone understood that this coin was a gift through images, since many would not be able to read the little Liberalitas Augustorum that is typically seen on the reverse of these coins. The emperor also celebrated the memory of his late wife by issuing a series of coins advertising the Puellae Faustinianae, a social program either created by Faustina herself or by Antoninus on her memory. The program was dedicated to taking care of orphan girls in Rome, and the reverse of this series once more shows the emperor and his wife on an elevated platform, being presented with orphans, while helpers took care of them. The reign of Antoninus was one of the most peaceful in imperial history, and his coinage really reflects this unusually calm period in Roman history. And we keep advancing in history. Records from the late empire also show how the use of coin imagery was interpreted by the people of the time. Late Roman coins are very different. They aren't very realistic. The portraits by that time had become schematic in nature, showing the emperor more as a symbol rather than an individualized person with unique, recognizable facial features. But it seems like people still paid close attention to what was put on the coins. The records of this time are particularly problematic. Most of them have a strong component of propaganda, like in the case of the coins of Emperor Julian, the last openly pagan emperor of Rome. According to Socrates Scholasticus, when the Christian mobs of Antioch protested against Julian, they shouted that his coinage had a bull, a pagan and heretical symbol, and that his long beard, which Julian also shown on his coins, was similar to that of a goat, reducing the emperor to an animal. Mind you, a goat was also an animal offered as a sacrifice, so this could have been a threat as well. During the reign of Constantine, a bishop, Eusebius of Caesarea, gives us a very revealing description of coinage. In his absolutely not biased book, The Life of Constantine, which once again is totally not biased, Eusebius says the emperor ordered his portrait to be stamped on coinage with his eyes raised upwards, quote, as in a posture of prayer to God. Eusebius speaks specifically to the gold coinage, but this upward-gazing Constantinian portrait was not only confined to gold, the type was used very broadly across the imperial coinage, issued in all three metals and different mints. Sadly, nowadays the Eyes to Heaven coin is relatively rare, so if you want one, even a bronze piece, be prepared to pay a premium. The type is very interesting, not just for the contemporary reports of yet another coin design and being put on literature and described in detail, but also because it fits Constantine rather well. He was only baptized at the very end of his life, but his turn towards like a single supreme god, it was visible much earlier. His coinage, like from earlier in his reign, already hints at this transition. Even before converting officially to Christianity, Constantine showed clear monotheistic tendencies. Earlier in his life, he was particularly devout of the sun god. Eusebius also mentions a second coin. Fortunately for the Constantine coin collectors who might be watching this one is quite common and easy to find. The bishop talks about the posthumous bronze issues showing Constantine veiled in a quadriga with the hand of God reaching down from above. This one is fascinating. His description is bang on exactly what the coin has. And I quote, "It had on one side a figure of our blessed princeps, with head closely veiled. The reverse showed him sitting as a charioteer drawn by 4 horses, with a hand stretched downwards from above to receive him up to heavens." This is probably one of Constantine's most overt Christian symbols on coins. Well, Technically, this wasn't Constantine's doing. This was a posthumous coin made by his sons, who were much more open about adding Christian imagery on their coins. But still, it is a remarkable case of an adaptation of imperial propaganda. Half like earlier imperial apotheosis, very pagan in its origins, and half Christian reworking of said apotheosis under this new religious system. There are also commentaries on coins in medieval literature. Dante's Inferno talks about coins. The counterfeiter called Maestro Adam describes his crime in explicitly numismatic terms, saying, quote, "I falsified coins, meddling with the alloys sealed with John the Baptist." And a few lines later, he becomes even more technical, explaining that he was induced to strike florins that had 3 less carats of gold in them. The coin he's referring to is the Florentine gold florin, introduced in the 13th century, one of the most important commercial coins of medieval Europe. This coin featured the Lily of Florence on one side and the image of St. John the Baptist, the city's patron saint, standing with his staff. It's interesting to see that Dante does not worry about the metrology of the coin, the fact the counterfeiter made coins of lesser gold, which was his actual crime on earth. Dante's concern is that Adam meddled with an object that had the holy image of a saint impressed upon it. This clearly lays bare like how closely connected the church was from the state during that time. To mess around with coins meant to mess around with the symbols placed on coins, which meant if you were caught faking these coins, it's not just that you were off to the chopping block, it's that after you had your head separated from your body in this chopping block, it's that after you were killed, your soul was then going straight to hell. And something else that's really cool is that some old medieval expressions related to money have managed to come to our present day. The people of Spain have a very good example for this. They have this phrase, "No tengo blanca," or "I don't have blancas," which means I have no money. Originally, the blanca was a real coin, a very small, low-value billion coin. Billion was an alloy of mostly copper with like little traces of silver. It was the sort of coin you needed in quantity because a single blanca had very little purchasing power. And that is what gives the phrase its meaning. To say, "I don't have a blanca," it's not just to say you are short of cash. It means you don't have like even the smallest, most ordinary little coin imaginable. You're like completely broke, down to the last scrap of pocket change. What makes the phrase especially interesting is that it has outlived the coin by centuries. Spain has not issued blancas for a very long time, but the expression remains alive. And this makes me curious. Does your country still have some old expression related to some kind of coin that doesn't exist anymore? I'm pretty sure some of you watching this video might know some of these, and I would love to read it in the comment section below. Well, I think I've made my point here. Did people care about what was on coins? They absolutely did. Maybe they didn't care as much as us coin collectors do. They had lives to take care of, but they certainly paid attention to them. So I hope you enjoyed this little video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. Happy coin collecting, and I'll see you soon. Let me give a special thank you to all of my amazing channel members and Patreons for their generous support. This channel would not be the same without your help. And if you would like to be part of this list, have early access to my videos when they are uploaded to YouTube, and a series of other perks, make sure to check out my Patreon page and my members tab on YouTube. Thank you very much.